Welcome back. This is the Friday show, and I need to give all of you a warning. If you're here to listen about real estate training and coaching, well, yes, this is the right podcast, the number one daily podcast that focuses on real estate agent training and coaching. But today's show is our Friday show, and on Friday, we give ourselves the liberty of talking about whatever the heck we want to talk about. And as we expressed to you guys a few weeks ago when we started doing this Friday show, Julie and I do sometimes force ourselves to study things that are way outside of our normal wheelhouse because we are trying to make it so that our brains stay elastic. So we say, frankly, we are able to think about things dynamically. So we look for topics and things that really obviously spark interest, but then we dive into them from both sides. Because I think all of you will agree that the days of simply being able to trust whatever the, quote unquote news is telling you is over. So when we are finding a topic that we find interesting, and hopefully you'll find some of these topics interesting as well, Julie and I are arguing or really discussing and sometimes debating from both sides of the argument. Like, hey, were those drones over New Jersey real? What the heck was the story with that? Do we really have a problem? Are tariffs really going to solve a financial problem or create a greater one? Well, we spent a lot of time on that. So those are the types of things we focus on Friday. Now, why are we doing that? Because first of all, it's cathartic. We like talking about these things. Second of all, it's great for all of you as well, because when you're out and about this weekend and you're talking with buyers and you're talking with sellers and you're wanting to have something a little bit more interesting to focus on, to really, I think, in the most part, form relationships with them, you're going to want to do something other than just talk about real estate. And so top of mind things that they maybe have been focusing on, that's what we're focusing on too, so that when you're having those conversations, you'll have maybe more of an insightful stance on whatever that particular conversation topic is, and making you thus more interesting. Hopefully that's something that resonates with all of you. So Julie, I want to start out by talking about a conversation that I had I bet you I had this 10 times this week. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing a lot of intervention calls, I'll say it that way,
sure,
with a lot of brokers and teams. And a lot of them are struggling to start the year with not enough listing inventory. And we've been hearing differing stories from Altos Research and others about really what is going on in the housing market right now. And one of the reports, I don't know if you heard this, I think it was from Mike Simonson.
Yes, Altos Research.
Yeah, he was talking about the fact that it's for the first time in like a decade, there's actually price reductions that are happening. It was less than 1%. Mm-hmm. Did you read that?
Yeah, I heard he did a little report on HousingWire as well. And that's unusual, particularly this time of year. So more price reductions, what does that mean? That's pretty much a precursor for the next round of home sales. This was the point he was making. Okay, so yes, in today's market, we have prices coming down. Now, that's not dramatically coming down. There's not a housing crash. We did a whole podcast on that last week.
I think it was like an average of 0.6%.
Right. It wasn't huge.
And again, remember, this is a national average, and like adjust your, to your market, because in your market, the prices might be, going up. But for the most part, they're getting lowered ever so slightly. And what it is indicative of is sellers being fearful of essentially, what's the market dynamics that's going on. And I have to think, and he didn't talk about this, Jules, having sold real estate, we know this.
Sure.
Obviously, there's not a lot of showing activity happening.
That's right. Well, that's what causes price reductions.
Exactly.
Right? Sellers freaking out after, that time frame has gotten shorter because of the habit of getting things on the market on Thursday, showing it on the weekend, and getting in contract by Monday. That was the habit. So now after 30 days or 60 days, sellers are like, okay, where's my deal? Where are my showings?
Well, but also perhaps what's also going on is that the listing agents didn't properly prepare the seller's expectations for the unusual start of this year, being that we had elections, being that we had, a nasty snowstorm, being that there's all these other things that were happening because of the change of the administration in Washington, D.C. And so that, buyers oftentimes will take themselves out of the market or slow their roll just for whatever headwinds they're experiencing. That's clearly what's happening. And the market, as markets do, are reacting, and a lot of these sellers are doing very slight price adjustments. But I'll go as, Mike, I didn't go as far as what I just said with regards to essentially why the price reductions were happening. I don't think it's any indication whatsoever of any sort of mass market erosion. It's just what I just said. Basically, the selling activity is a little slower than the showing activity is slower, and the market's naturally adjusting, trying to make their product, their houses, the listings more attractive. That's basically the extent of it.
That's right, and that's very different than anything that you would call a crash or a big adjustment or something like that. We're coming down from maybe aspirational pricing and dealing with some of the factors that you mentioned. Now, what does this do moving forward? Those homes that did the price adjustments, and sometimes it's going to take 2 adjustments, not 1, to finally sell, those then become new comparable sales, which the next batch, like the spring market, will see whether they use those slight adjusted down, right? So I actually have some figures on that. CoreLogic came out with actually some revised projections for home appreciation. They were thinking it was going to be 1 or 2%, but now they're saying from 2024 to 2025, end of 2025, that overall we should be at about 4.1% increase, with the exceptions of Florida, Texas, Arizona, and Oregon, which will swing between coming down by about 1% to quote, only appreciating 1 to 3%. And then we have some outliers too. Miami, Chicago, and Boston are all set to be close to 5 to 6% appreciation. So that shows you, again, to make your point, slight adjustments does not mean that we're having anything radical happen. But as listing agents, you need to pay attention to those comps and pay attention to the days on the market and the list to sell price ratio.
Okay, so back to these conversations I was having with all these folks. So they're experiencing a weird start to the year, and they wanted me to talk them off the ledge. And so here's what I told every single one of them to do, and I'm giving this strong suggestion to all of you as well. I'll give you the last, essentially a roll down or a description of the last conversation I had. So this was with a massive producing agent, and I won't give any, I haven't asked for permission, so I'm not going to leave any breadcrumbs who it is, because some of you guys will probably know who it is. Anyway, so this is a massive agent that sells hundreds and hundreds of homes per year. And they are part of our EXP group, and they're also obviously coaching clients, the whole thing. So I'm asking them about what's the process that they're doing with regards to listing lead generation. And they said, well, we've got, I think it was 8 ISAs, and they're all domestic ISAs. They're all based in the United States, that we're doing essentially the lead follow-up, but more specifically receiving all the new leads that were coming in from all the different things they were doing from lead generation, a lot of sign calls, things like that. And they were doing some, online lead generation, all the good stuff, right? So that's what they were doing. And so I asked, what these are all essentially, leads that are flowing in, and they're coming in as buyer leads, people that are expressing interest in a house for sale. And, he said yes. So then I asked, how many of these leads do you have? And his answer was really just astonishing. It was 130,000. So they have 100, he didn't know exactly, but let's say 130,000 leads in this CRM that, I can't even imagine how complex that whole thing is. I don't want to imagine, frankly. So 130,000 of those leads. And I asked him, and remember, the conversation was about basically getting more listings. And I asked him, how do you guys have those tagged? When the ISAs are converting one of these, sign calls or whatever, what's the emphasis? What's the focus? And he said, well, I don't, he wasn't really sure what script they were using. He wasn't really sure what the process was. And I said, so here's what I'll suggest. Of the 130,000 leads that you guys have, realistically, if you're lucky, 13,000 of those are viable. The rest are just, you could essentially remove them and have no detrimental effect. So let's just, whatever it is, let's just focus on that 10%. Of the 13,000, I could pretty much guarantee you, now their average price was pretty decent, $800 million, $800,000 million. So they're looking at not first-time home buyer prices, which means, and all of you guys know this too, right? Intuitively, which means probably every single one of those buyers, air quoting, were actually sellers as well, right? So I thought to myself, well, that means you have hypothetically, conservatively, 6,000 potential listing leads. And you're telling me that you want to figure out how to generate more listing leads. In your database, you've got, probably some decent information on potentially 6. Now, who are they? And so then he got into a CRM. Remember, the ISAs had been effectively running it. And then, I asked, how are they tagged, buyers or sellers? And almost all of them were tagged buyers. To which then I said, well, I want to see the pre-qual script. I want to know what they're saying. I want to see what you're actually, teaching these ISAs. Okay, well, guess what? He had this, script. And the ISAs, I'm not criticizing what they were doing because they were just doing what they were told to do. The script was 100% about converting a buyer lead. And there was barely a mention or conversation about whether that potential buyer actually is a seller in the script. It was almost to the very end of the script. And I looked at that script and I asked him, I said, does it make sense to you that your ISAs or your buyer agents or does it make sense that you're holding out on the most important conversation with the new lead as to whether or not they have a house to sell until the very end? In other words, when that prospect is doing everything to get off the phone and not talk to you anymore. I mean, why are you holding out the most important question to the end? There was no answer. And I want you guys to ask yourselves that question. Why are you doing the same thing? I think I know why. It's because you think you have to have some kind of fake relationship with that prospective lead before you can ask them if they're interested, if they have a house to sell. And you think about that. They have a house to sell. They are not going to buy a house from you or anybody else, most likely, until they sell their house. The most important question, and you're almost afraid to ask it because they might, hang up the phone? Now, here's the script, and I'm going to give this to you guys, and you need to write it down. And obviously, this is included in Premier Coaching. I'm not going to get this exactly right because it's not in front of me, but I'll give you the framework of it, okay? Julie, can you role play with me?
Sure.
All right, you're going to be the buyer.
All right.
So I'll call you back, okay?
Okay. So I'm a lead sitting in your CRM, basically.
Well, okay. Let's just say you're a new lead and I'm calling you back. I'm using 800 Home Hotline or something like that.
Fair enough.
I'll use 800 Home Hotline script, okay? Hopefully I can get this right. All right. So I'm calling Julie back. She just called. She's using 800 Home Hotline. And if you guys don't know what 800homehotline.com is and you have listings, you definitely want to be using this service. It's pretty much the most effective. I have to think it's the most effective, least expensive way to generate lots and lots of leads at 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com.
It's literally almost free.
It's $34 a month, and they don't charge you any referral fees on no Mickey Mouse. It's $34 a month with no contracts, and you can literally generate hundreds of leads from it. It's just astonishing. In any event, all right, I'm going to call you back. So Julie just called on the sign of a new listing, and I just put the sign in the yard, and she's driving past it. But I'll even help myself out for the sake of this role play. She's a neighbor, okay? And so I'm going to call her back. And so she just called the 800 Home Hotline number. She listened to a brief recording on the house. She got the over and under on the house, bedrooms, baths, and all the rest of it. And she got the price range. So that's all in the scripts that you get with 800 Home Hotline. So I'm going to call her back, and this is the script. So she just hung up her phone, and whether it's on cell phone or not, whether she called on cell or not, ideally, most cases the prospects are going to be calling literally from their cars as they're sitting in front of the house. And Julie just hit end. The call is over. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi, this is Tim Harris with eXp Realty. As a courtesy, when people call our 800 number, we like to give them a call back to see if they have any additional questions about the home they called about.
Oh, well, I just drove by. Is this a real person?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I like to do a great job of following up with everyone who's interested in one of my listings for sale. So do you have any additional questions for me?
Yeah, I was just wondering what the exact price was.
Let me look that one up. I think that house is still available. And I'm going to also take a glance for you to see if there's any additional homes that are similar to that are coming up for sale that aren't yet listed. Oh, by the way, which house in the neighborhood are you thinking about selling?
Oh, well, I'm not quite sure yet, but I live a couple streets away, like right in the front of that neighborhood. I was just driving through.
So that's what happens. Is you basically catch that lead. They aren't prepared for you to ask that question right when you're calling them back, right? They're not ready. They've called plenty of real estate agents. They know the song and the dance. They know they want the price. And as soon as you guys give them what they're after, and I'm not saying hold the information back, but you sort of are, because you want to find out what the nature of that lead is. Because after all, that lead, if they have a house to sell, chances are they're not going to be buying anything. So wouldn't it be good to know? And obviously you can then chase that as a seller, chase that as a listing lead. So again, the idea that you're going to try to fake friend them and lure them or reel them in as a buyer lead, and then hopefully that listing lead, the listing becomes yours. That's an asinine way to approach the business, because their home has to sell prior to them buying, and yet you front load the relationship with all this work helping them find something, put them in your CRM and drip on them. All the while, nothing's going to happen until their house sells. You guys following all this? So let's just say Julie said she didn't have a house to sell, okay? So, Julie, you don't have a house to sell.
No, I already sold my old house.
Okay, then what happens, and this is all in our Premier Coaching scripts, then you roll into buyer pre-qualification because Julie didn't present as having a listing to sell. Then you roll right into, asking about time frames and making sure they're not working with another real estate agent, how long they've been looking, all these scripts that are included in Premier Coaching. Now, if she has a house to sell, which you'll have just discovered, then I'm going to roll into a different script. And our scripts, I know some of you guys repel on the word script. All they are is conversation outlines. And when you enroll in Premier Coaching, the script actually is a questionnaire that you can actually print out, and you can give this to your assistant. When Julie and I sold real estate, version 1.0 of all these scripts, we're on like version 1000.0 now. All those scripts were sitting on everyone's desk in our office. And we had the buyer scripts were blue and the seller scripts were, I think they were pink, weren't they?
Yep.
Yeah. And so there are 2 stacks in everyone's desk. And, the script was right in front because everyone called back and did immediate, furiously fast lead follow-up. But that, again, is the real critical element. So anyway, going back to this coaching session I'm having, this really informal coaching session I'm having with this top producing agent, I suggested that, first of all, the ISA script that they're using is really a dumpster fire, and they need to upgrade to our scripts, which he promptly did. And then I suggested what you need to do is get into and have all the ISAs start calling all the leads. Now, he had too many leads, and, so maybe they're going to have to do some sifting and sorting. Maybe they're going to have to go into the CRM, and they're going to have to focus on the ones that are opening the emails, watching the videos, the ones that are actually showing the most activity.
Maybe the most recent ones.
Exactly, and go backwards. But the number one thing is, from there forward, they have to actually start doing a better job pre-qualifying. So I just told you guys 2 things, and hopefully it's resonating with you. Number one, furiously fast lead follow-up is always going to win the day. Remember, according to NAR, most agents work with most buyers or sellers work with the first agent that they meet. And number 2, just following up with them isn't anything. You have to have a script, a pre-qualification script where you're going to ascertain what their motivation is, and you focus all of your best energies on listings on sellers because you get all your leverage in real estate comes from listings and sellers. Your consistent cash flow comes from being a listing agent. Your endless supply of additional leads comes from being a listing agent. So hopefully this is all working for you. A lot of you guys are going to want to join Premier Coaching. And of course, the link is down below in the show description, or you can just go to premiercoaching.com and you can join Premier Coaching right now for free. So we went through I had the similar call. The one that I just described to you guys was the most recent one. That's the reason it sticks out in my mind. But if you guys are not experiencing the motivation and momentum that you want to have in to the start of the year, it's up to you to change that direction. So you're going to have to double down. You're going to have to triple down. You're going to have to not just put in the same amount of effort that you have traditionally done maybe in the beginning of the year. You might have to overcome really some of the negative momentum that's happening for all the reasons. You're going to have to probably work, not forever, but for maybe the next 2 or 3 months, maybe 5 times or 10 times harder. What does that mean specifically when we tell them to work harder? What is that? I mean, that's such a bullshit thing to say.
Sure.
But let's give them some specifics. Let's make it practical.
Yeah. Okay. So when we talk about working harder, what we're talking about is some very specific dollar productive things. There's work theater. There's a lot of things in real estate that look like work theater.
Well, describe it.
Okay, so anything that starts with tweaking, working on, getting ready to get started, waiting, that's a big thing, waiting for rates, waiting, for one of your past clients to call you magically because you've been lucky in the past, all of that kind of stuff. And that sometimes looks and feels like work, and there's another level to that, which is work that needs to be done, like dealing with inspections and stuff like that. But what we're talking about, getting control of having more listing leads, which will turn into more listings, which create more business, that's a different type of work.
Where the work theater is anything that you guys do other than proactive lead generation that's done under the guise of lead generation that's not proactive. What do I mean? Branding, marketing, videoing, all the rest of it. That's work theater. What you need to do is realize that the work theater stuff, it can be set aside and done in your free time. And what you need to be doing now is the real work of real estate. And so when we say, 10x what you're doing or 20x what you're doing, that means conversations. That means proactive outreach. That means getting in front of more people, not just for the sake of getting in front of them, but asking them questions, using our scripts with, the conversations are obviously when you guys see our scripts, you'll see they're conversational. They're easy to say. They feel natural and organic for you to say them, but they're all going to be gearing your, essentially learning about that lead so that you know what their motivation is. So you know what their time frame is. So you know if they have realistic expectations. If it's a seller, so all the things. That's what the whole point. That's the real work. You have to be having more conversations like that. Fake work is essentially probably what most of you guys are doing. I'm going to work on a video. I'm going to work on my brand. I'm going to work on my CRM. Do that after you've done the real work of real estate. And if your goal is, here's a advanced player mode here. If your goal is to sell 20 houses this year, you need to be holding yourself accountable, hire us and we'll help you do it, to making at least 20 solid contacts per day. A contact is a decision-making adult with someone about buying or selling real estate. That does not include a text. That does not include an email. That means an actual conversation, ideally where you're using our pre-qual scripts, where you're going through the rigmarole of actually drilling down on motivation.
But it's voice-to-voice or face-to-face.
Yep.
Okay, so our coaching clients have on their wall next to their whiteboards, which we've trained them to track everything with, another little board that says, what are the things that make me money in real estate? You said the most important one, proactive lead generation. And really, that can be the only one because the rest of them don't happen without that. So it's proactive lead generation. Then you've got pre-qualifying, presenting, negotiating, closing. Okay, you're not going to have anything to present, negotiate, or close if you have no leads. So that's why the buck stops with proactive lead generation. And ultimately what that means is simplifying what you do every day down to what are my next appointments. If I don't have any appointments, if I don't have enough appointments to meet or exceed my, the deal creation for this month in and month out, then there's only one answer. You need more appointments.
And if anybody, if you're listening to anybody, if you're watching any, coach videos, or if you're listening to anybody who's telling you to do anything other than what we just said, and you're experiencing some negative momentum right now, you need to ask them. You need to remember what Julie and I were starting out by saying today's show. We like to look at things from both sides. That way, as you grow older, it's easy to get biased and, get off my lawn, right?
Right.
It's easy to start thinking that your beliefs are the ways that they always should be. And I have news for you. If you guys are Julie and I's, Generation X, you'll discover that a lot of the things that we hold dear are true. But a lot of them now are really going to change rapidly because of all the things, the politics and the technology and the AI. And so if we just basically are all resolute, and it can happen in any age group, but if you're just resolute and you're thinking, I've got it figured out, that's the way it is, you're going to fail. And you'll fail so fast in a market like this, it'll make your head spin. So that means if your lead generation things that you were doing, 1 year ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 2 years ago, whatever, all the things that you were doing in the past, you must start out with the assumption that they're not going to work in the future. You must start out by, now it might not be true, but what that's going to do, it's going to force you to hold that part. Let's say, for example, you're getting a kick-ass result from a direct mail campaign, right? And let's say this direct mail campaign for years was working really good. Now, all of a sudden, you've noticed a drop-off in the number of leads that you're getting over the last, let's just say 12 months, it's been a steady decline. And so now you're saying, well, what the hell's wrong with this direct mail campaign? And so what you're going to do is you're going to, most people will keep doing it. They'll just hold the line. They'll just wait for things to improve. And then what happens is years pass, 2 years pass, 3 years pass, you keep doing it. But what you didn't realize was your direct mail campaign was failing, not because of direct mail not necessarily working in your market, because there were 10 other realtors doing the same thing. Or because, frankly, maybe the mail delivery, something changed. Maybe you needed to. So the point is what worked in the past, you can pretty much be guaranteed will not work in the future. In real estate, the future used to be like what worked in the past and like for the last 10 years probably works as good in year 8 as it did in year 1, because that's how long things were, the cycle of marketing ideas and things playing out. But nowadays, the cycle is really, think about Facebook ads, for example. How relevant is an idea that worked on Facebook 2 months, 90 days later? It doesn't. It's crazy how fast things are changing. And now introducing AI, it's going to happen even faster. That's the reason Julie and I are always going to be proponents of proactive lead generation, because one thing that technology will never replace, and you guys know this, is meaningful conversations, with folks. You're never going to have technology in any way replace your ability to have thoughtful, meaningful, caring, competent, professional conversations with prospects, helping them arrive at a point where they're going to decide to work with you. AI won't replace that. Never will it replace it. No amount of marketing and branding is ever going to replace a meaningful one-on-one conversation. Put your emphasis and your focus on that and get really, really good at that, because the other stuff is somewhat ubiquitous. There are going to be so many AI real estate influencers at the end of this year, it's not even funny. There are going to be so many people that are creating great YouTube content. So many people that are running for the mayor of your digital town. It's going to be overwhelming, because every single agent coming into the marketplace is falling prey to the marketing and the branding and the buying the leads and the passive lead generation stuff. Whereas Julie and I, as far as I know, are the only ones that are saying, yes, all that passive stuff has a place, but it's in support of the proactive stuff. So if you want to do the passive stuff, go ahead and do it. It's kind of fun. I mean, I enjoy it. Julie and I enjoy it.
But in support of, though.
In support of. You still got to do the real work of real estate. All right, so if there's nothing else that you have on this particular topic, let's move on to something ideally not about real estate.
Well, I do have a stat that you'll find interesting, and then we'll cap off this particular conversation. It's been floating around, and I want to do some research on this. I bet it's true. The stat that I've read several times is that last year, supposedly Zillow, and I think it might have been Zillow plus Homes.com, sold 100 million leads, okay? 100 million leads. And how many transactions happened last year? There were just right around 4 million transactions. Even if we count both sides and say there were 800 million commissions, so to speak, 8 million. That's still a really terrible ratio. 100 million leads versus 4 to 8 million deals.
But you said it right the first time.
And that assumes that all those deals came that way, which they didn't.
You said it right the first time. So if there are 4 million if there are 4 million sales,
yeah.
There are 2 million.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Yes,
yeah.
You did backwards. There are 2 million buyer sides.
Right.
And how many of those buyer leads came from Zillow? And you're saying, obviously, a very small percent of them actually have closed transactions. We could probably research it and find out how many actual transactions Zillow participated in by receiving.
I'm going to try and find out.
Well, I bet you
Just
can't find out.
Yeah.
Well, you could do the math backwards. You could
Yeah.
find out what the revenue was, and you could kind of do some calculations or have AI do it for you. And you could actually figure out how many sides they participated in.
Sure.
I've never seen that data published before,
Yeah.
but your overarching statistic is fascinating. So if there are essentially 2 million buyer sides and Zillow sold 100 million leads to agents,
Yeah.
that really is
It's
ridiculous.
terrible.
Right.
But what made me remember that, because I'm researching that in my notes here, is that you were talking about how many things historically used to work but no longer work.
Yep.
Right when Zillow was fresh, it did work. When agent personal websites were new, they used to work. We used to drive traffic to our website. There's so many examples of things that used to work. Now, before we go on to another topic, which
but
yeah,
Julie,
go ahead.
thank you for bringing that up
Yeah.
again. I was on my rant before, so I may have gone
okay.
over too fast. There's nothing wrong with you, dear listener. Probably. I mean, I don't know you, but but let's assume
soon
there's
to
not,
tell.
right.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your ability or your intention or your skill set or your reputation, or let's just assume all those things are right as rain. What's wrong is that you're trying to make something that may have worked great in the past work now, and it just won't. And that's the problem with marketing and branding. That's the problem with advertising, because you have to constantly be updating and changing and spending more and more money. And as the competition for those same leads increases, what happens is the quality of the lead goes in the crapper, and the cost of the lead, quadruples. So that's the thing.
Also, it's not just your leads. Some of those leads that were sold on Zillow were also sold on Homes.com, not just to you.
But Jill, listen to what she just said. It wasn't just, that same buyer that you guys essentially, that lead that you bought, that same buyer may have filled out forms on other websites and was sold on other platforms to other agents. So that buyer lead, and here's the insanity of it all. And Julie and I've said this since 2008. The insanity of it all is that buyer leads are the easiest things to get when you have listings. Any listing agent will tell you that. And the fact that you guys are spending so much money and effort and time, your entire career is chasing buyers, when listings are where it's at, it just doesn't make any sense. Is there a single one of you right now, if you had a choice between having 20 buyers or 5 listings, 5 great listings ready to sell, 20 buyers. There's no such thing as a have to buy buyer because they can always change their mind. As obviously that's what's happening. That's the reason price reductions are happening now. Who wouldn't rather have the listings?
Well, and if you had those 5 listings, you'd have the 20 buyers anyway.
Yeah, because the buyers will exactly.
So it's not really a choice.
It does. So, but ultimately, it comes down to what? Why is it Why is it that agent who I was telling you about at the top of it with their 8 ISAs doing all the lead follow up? Why were all those calls on all the scripts focused on pulling out the buyer lead? Because the agent who ran the team was not that skilled as a listing agent, because they had come up in the industry in the last like 12 years. And they come up during the era where as soon as you get your license, everyone tells you to buy buyer leads and chase buyer leads. That's the era that we're still in. And nobody other than Julie and I have been, trying to get you guys to understand that if here's another thing to think about. So there were 2 million buyer sides, let's say last year. There were 2 million seller sides. How many people do you think are chasing the listings versus how many are chasing the buyers? For every one listing, every one skilled agent that knows how to get a listing, there has to be 100 agents
at least
that are trying to chase the buyers. And the buyers will come to you if you're a listing agent, because the buyers, how does Zillow get the leads to sell to you guys? The buyers pop on Zillow, look for buyer houses for sale.
They're looking at listings.
Exactly. So if you have your own listings, guess what you have to do? You have to beat the buyers off the stick because you'll have so many buyer leads. And that's true in any market.
Yes. Okay. So we've told them a lot about what not to do, what to stop doing, what to stop hanging your hat on, what to stop waiting for.
But I want them to stop doubting themselves and realize that the market is adjusted and it's changing. Yes. The market conditions are changing. The market dynamics are changing. We're going to see a slew of changes this year with housing. Thank God.
Yes.
But the other thing is changing is technology. And so the ease of being able to of generating leads from all the, social media and whatnot, dubious leads, but leads nonetheless. That area, you think it's saturated now, you have no idea what it's going to be like in probably 6 or 12 months. You've got to learn how to be a proactive lead generator before it's too late.
Now, let me clarify, because I've, as always, listened to a lot of chatter, coaching calls, other people's podcasts, social media, all this stuff. Before you start thinking that when we say proactive lead generation, we are talking about cold calling. No, you do not have to be a cold calling slave. Let me clarify. Cold calling, look at the words. Cold calling to us is circle prospecting, not around your own listings or sales.
Well, so you're now making them a list. So we're going without a script here. So
I wanted to make sure that they knew what to do.
Go from the least effective to the most effective forms of proactive lead generation. So the most effective, and I'll get you started, is going to be furiously fast lead follow-up.
Yes, dealing with what's already in your pipeline.
Dealing with somebody who already called and expressed interest in something that you have for sale, that's always going to be the number one source of a ready-to-go transaction, provided you're actually taking a scripted approach to pull out what their actual motivation is.
Most likely to set appointment with you.
Okay, number 2, after that, it's going to have to either be an expired or a for sale by owner.
I would agree with that.
And after that, it's going to be there's a whole slew of after that.
I would say probate. I would say
Me too.
Sometimes new construction reps. And I have to say there is a variety as part of my point to this. It's not just one thing.
But as far as now think about this logically. Then you're going to get into your centers of influence and past client calls. And then if you've already pulled all the apples off the tree of, there's literally probably 10 great sources of, as you go higher in the numbers here, the quality or the intensity of that motivation for that prospective lead starts to degrade. Then you get to the circle prospecting and all the rest of it.
But if you do the rest of it right, you never get to that.
Exactly. You'll never call them. So again, I'll tell you, since you brought it up, thank you. Mm-hmm. I had another call with another small team, and it was in Washington State. Mm-hmm. They are a part of our EXP family, but not a coaching client. Okay?
Gotcha. Okay.
Coaching client now, part of the EXP group. All right. So having this conversation, and the gist of it is they were saying, well, we're doing prospecting. And there were like 7 agents. Well, we're doing prospect every day. And of course, that's, honey to a bear, I'm like, oh, you're doing prospecting. That's fantastic.
Really? Yeah.
Every time I hear an agent say they're doing prospecting, I have immediate respect for them because
Me too. Yeah.
because they're doing what they're doing. They're doing what they don't want to do, and they don't want to do it at the highest level. And they're going against what everyone tells them. They're actually, doing the real work of real estate.
What's funny is they're always proud to tell you that they'll start the call by saying, I just want you to know I'm not buying leads.
Exactly. I know.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to fast track your way to Julie and I's heart, that's how you do it. All right. So then I said, well, who are you calling? And then circle prospecting. To which then I asked them, well, why? Why are you doing public service announcements in neighborhoods letting people know about houses for sale? Well, that's just, the answer is it's the easy call because there's no rejection. That's the answer. So any other answer other than that, you're not being honest with yourself.
No, that's
you're doing those circle prospecting lead calls because there's no sales skills required and because everyone will just love to hear about the new house that just sold, right? That's it. It's an easy call. So then I said, well, why aren't you calling the expireds? This actually happened. Oh, there are no expireds in our marketplace. Oh boy, let's go.
Can of worms opened.
Can of worms open. To which then in front of his team, I had him go and research in the MLS how many actual expireds there were in his particular market in the last 12 months. Obviously, I'm stacking the deck in my favor, and there were like 18,000, right? And I said, well, how many of those 18,000 relisted within 90 days? He didn't know how to use his MLS, but statistically, the answer is 90% within the first 180 days relist and sell. So then I said, obviously, and listeners, you're following along with me, if you actually want to generate listings, actually want to help people and make money, why the hell wouldn't you be calling the people who have their hands in the air right now saying, yes, I want to sell my house? Why wouldn't you be calling those people opposed to doing circle, prospecting? Why? Explain it to me. And of course, which he didn't. And then they realized the real reason was they have a skills deficit. And that's what Premier Coaching and our coaching program is all about. But doesn't it make sense to all of you guys as you guys listen to me banter or rant, whatever the hell I'm doing? Doesn't it make sense to all of you that if you're serious about real estate, why don't you stop spending so much time looking for leads? Where's the lead? Where's the lead? Why don't you instead go to where there's piles of leads right now who are saying, please call me. I have a problem to solve. It's called sell my damn house.
Yeah, what's great about that call, though? I love calls like that because that person, and maybe some of their team members as well, is not afraid of being on the phone. They've gotten through that piece of it, right?
Yep.
And they have some level of discipline. I assume that they don't do it just randomly. They're doing it as part of their schedule based on what you're telling me about the call. They've done two breakthroughs. One is they're not afraid to be on the call. Secondly, they're not afraid to do it consistently. So somebody like that is extremely coachable and usually fairly easy to take to the next level, assuming that they now start talking to the most likely to actually list versus random people basically out of the phone book, right?
One more story, okay?
Sure. I have a couple as well.
Okay, well, I mean, it's hopefully we're really breaking through to some of these guys. You guys, if you're not experiencing the momentum, if you're not optimistic, if you're not realizing this is going to be your best year ever in real estate, it's your fault. You got to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level.
Got to own it.
And you got to own it. You got to realize that some of the, maybe passive things that worked in the past, that sort of maybe worked in the past, and they're not working now. You just need to accept the fact that they probably will never work, probably are going to work in lesser degrees, and you're going to need to take a different approach to real estate. Don't wait around and analyze it and give it another month to see if what I just said is right or wrong. Assume what I just said was right. Take actions to become a proactive lead generator. And let's say it turns out those passive things do start churning out leads for you again. Well, awesome, because now you're a proactive lead generator and you're a passive lead generator. So, both things worked when you are willing to do the actual work. Actually, let's roll to one of your stories.
Yeah. So, for example, and I want to make it clear that it doesn't have to be, so difficult, right? You don't have to make like the circle prospecting. It takes hundreds of them to get anywhere, right? So, for example, expired, your example. I'm going to use an example of one of our coaching clients who has embraced being a listing agent. Now, she lives in Phoenix. She doesn't have 10 listings yet. She has 3 active listings, and yet She's extremely busy right now because she has already achieved having listing inventory equals having buyer leads. And because all of her listings are 1 million and up, they're between 1 million and 4 million currently, she's getting people that have homes to sell. So she's generating not just the buyer side, probably going to sell her own listings herself, but also taking listings as a result. So moral of the story is the more listings you have, the less of the day-to-day calls you have to make. You become a lead follow-up machine. So being in Phoenix, you'll appreciate this. One of her listings went live during the Barrett-Jackson auction. One of the buyers that she got calling her had some kind of automotive-based HGTV show. So now he's in her buyer pipeline. He wants to have something in Phoenix. He wants to store his, in this case, motorcycles in Phoenix. Why did she get that call? Because she had the listing. Second thing that's happening because she has 3 active listings at the same time, now she's doing a killer job systematizing her open house plan. And every time she's had an open house, she's had at least 1 to 2 highly qualified, highly motivated, not just buyer clients, but buyers that also have something to sell. So you see there are flavors of this. There's variety, but all roads lead back to being a listing agent.
And then the other thing that's miraculous about what we're telling you guys or suggesting and coaching you, frankly, to do is when you are a proactive listing lead generator and you're actually doing the real work of real estate, there are no referral fees.
Yeah, that too.
You're calling that for sale by owner, or you're calling that notice of default, or you're calling that different source of motivated seller lead. And again, this is where our focus is in our coaching business. Our coaching business obviously has a great, robust buyer section, lead generation section. We do talk about branding and marketing and the rest of it. But just because I had these series of calls, and I know, at least I'm hoping it's helping some of the thousands of you that are actually listening. I mean, last year we had over 3 million of you that consumed one of our podcasts, or maybe it was a video or something. But the moral of the story is, I know some of you, chances are a good percent of you are experiencing this sort of emotional malaise, and the only thing that's going to move you past that is your own actions. Stop waiting around for someone else to do it for you. Hopefully this podcast is educating and motivating you. And what I really want you to feel from this is the fact that you can be empowered to actually make a real meaningful change in your life, and you still have time to do it to make this your best year ever. I fear for you if you're going to wait another freaking moment, because the spring's going to pass you up. And you damn well know that if you have a crappy spring, you're going to have a crappy summer. And most of you guys, about the same time kids go back to school, you're checked out for the rest of the year. Yep. If you're not, maybe your market is, right? There's all these market dynamics that we start dealing with in about another really 60 to 90 days that naturally slow the market down, because people are going on vacation, kids go to school, out of school, the holidays, all the things, right? So effectively, you have already had almost 2 months pass you by, and it's up to you now to accept the fact that you're going to have to learn how to be a proactive lead generator. And the great news is you have very little competition in that regard, because most agents are still so mired in the belief that marketing and branding is going to get them, make them successful. And you know what? You can do the marketing, the branding, but have it be in addition to the proactive lead generation. That's really what I'm hoping you guys all realize. And, again, I did a lot of intervention calls this week, and it's my pleasure and my honor to do it. Especially with brokers and teams, it's natural and normal in an election cycle, in an election year, when, interest rates are 7%, all the rest of it, for there to be a little bit of hesitance. Well, look for the opportunity. For example, we started out by telling you guys there's price reductions during a time of year when there's normally not price reductions. And that's a meaningful bit of information. Why? Because if you have been waiting to become, let's say, for example, your market's expired listing expert, there has never been a better time, because what's going to happen is a lot of those houses that are for sale now will expire. And I'm going to give you guys some advanced player notes here. You'll discover when you go into the MLS that, let's say there's a competing broker or competing team or an agent in your marketplace. Or maybe you're not even competing. Maybe you're just a buyer's agent. You want to become a seller's agent. Get into the MLS and try to ascertain what the usual days or the usual listing term is for that competing agent or broker. And you'll see most agents are they're listing their properties for maybe 90 days. The smart ones are listing with a open-end list, or with a easy exit listing, so they can list it for longer than a year sometimes. But you learn that in Premier Coaching. But you're going to look to see that there are some dominant listing agents in your marketplace who probably are going to have a slew of expired listings over the next 60 to 90 days.
And the ones doing price reductions right now are self-identifying as, motivated.
And here's something else you guys will discover when you're working with sellers, especially expireds. Sometimes, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. A seller will be pissed off at their listing agent and not want to reduce the price or not give the listing agent the price reduction just because they feel like, this is totally irrational, but this is what they think. Just because they feel like the listing agent lied to them about the price just to get the listing. And so even though it does not work in their benefit, they will actually do their best to prevent that existing listing agent from getting the sale and getting the commission because they resent them. I know that sounds crazy, but that is how some sellers actually act. That means more expireds. So if you've been waiting to become a listing agent or learn the skills to become an expired listing agent, you have probably a 60-day, maybe a 90-day window right now, and then you are most likely going to start seeing a ton of expireds. A ton of expireds creates amazing opportunity for you if you're willing to be a proactive lead generator. It also means all the other proactive sources of leads that we teach you guys to chase in Premier Coaching, they become more viable as well. Because guess what? If there's more expireds and the market's slowing down, for sale by owners aren't selling either. And there are all these other things, the new build reps, which we teach you guys to prospect, the listings that they might be able to toss your way from their prospective build buyers, buyer builds, whatever. They're also going to be worried whether the house is going to sell. Where there's fear in the marketplace creates opportunity. So I want you to do and think in terms of the exact opposites and think what direction your market is going and prepare yourself for what the market is going to be. It's the Wayne Gretzky quote. Wayne, what makes you the best? What makes you the greatest of all time? You're not the fastest. You're not the this, that, the other thing. And his quote was, I skate where the puck is going to be. All the other players skate to where the puck is. So where the puck is going to be is hopefully what you're now realizing is what we have been suggesting to you guys for decades, but especially now.
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, most of you only need one or two really good wins on expireds for sale by owners, probate, whatever, per month. And then realize, do like what our coaching clients do. They'll take the listing. They'll use 1-800-HOME hotline. They'll do a really great systematized open house. They'll convert leads from that. That'll become their next listing and their next buyer side. They lather, rinse, repeat. How many of those do you need to create for you to meet or exceed your goals? That's exactly the system we teach you in Premier Coaching.
Exactly.
To make your life easier, not harder. Some of you are so frustrated right now because you look at, like the call you were describing. Oh, I've got 1,000 leads. No, you don't. You have 1,000 people as a contact, right? There's no way that is more efficient than doing the real work of real estate that we teach you.
Your goal, and here it is. We wanted to talk about all this crazy stuff, but these intense conversations are top of mind for me, and I know they are for you too. But
that's what we do.
Your goal here. I'll tell you guys something else that will surprise you. Your goal is not to have a 1,000 leads, let alone 100,000 leads. Your goal is to have the fewest number of leads. Obviously 0 is not the goal, but your goal is to have maybe, like our top producing agents, we only want them to have maybe 10 or 12, maybe 15 really great leads. Why? Because those are the actual ones that are going to become real transactions. And they have whittled those folks down. Like on a coaching call, one of the questions would be, one of our coaches would ask is, all right, tell me about, you need to tell me what your 10 best leads are, and you need to prove to me, sell to me, this is the coach saying to the agent, why those are great leads. You need to tell me what their motivation is. You tell me what their time frame is. You need to prove to me, sell to me why that is somebody that you are counting as a lead. And then what you'll discover quickly, I've got 30 leads. All right, then tell me about the 10 best ones. And then they'll tell you about the 10 best ones, and 2 of them are actually great leads. The rest are not real leads. They're just contacts. And the agent doesn't know the difference. I talked to them. I had a great conversation. We talked about golden retrievers and football, blah, blah, blah. Well, what you didn't ask them is, do they have a house to sell? What you don't know is what their time frame is.
Are they talking to anybody else? What's their financing situation? Those are the real conversations that come as a result of the pre-qualification questions, i.e. script. And you're right. A lot of times they'll present with, and it's always on the buyer side, right? I've got 9 gajillion buyer leads. All right, tell me about them. And some of them are good. One of my criteria is, what is your next action step with that person that you're telling me is going to transact with you? Well, they're not going to be ready for 6 months. Okay, that I would not say that's really a lead, at least not today.
But let's give them a script. All right, so this is about, I don't even remember, halfway into one of the buyer scripts. And we have several buyer scripts. Again, all this is for you guys in Premier Coaching. So one of the scripts, and again, this is like as you pre-qualified the buyer lead, you've determined that they don't have a house to sell and all the rest of it. So, the question is, so Julie, all right, I understand what you're looking for. So, I know how long Julie's been looking. I know Julie's not working with another agent. I know Julie's been, essentially has already started, if not approved for financing. I pre-qualified her. I know what her motivation is. On the first call.
Yes.
Not 20 months after you've shown them a billion houses, okay?
Well, so stop.
Nope, not
call on the first call.
Right. Now, then the question I'm going to ask you. All right, so Julie, just so I understand, you're looking for a two-story colonial with 4 bedrooms on a quarter-acre lot, and you're looking in the Oakhurst subdivision. You're okay with a little bit of work. Car's got to have a 2-car garage. You want room in the backyard for a shed. You raise many horses, and you have a pet orangutan, okay?
Yep, all that's true. Yep.
Okay, so...
I need a storage room for my orangutan feed, but yeah,
exactly.
got it.
All right, so if I were to show you a house that met all your criteria, let's say it was an 8 out of 10.
Sure.
This is the house you've been looking for. Maybe you had to do this, you had to do the other thing, but for the most part, all the boxes are checked. On a scale of 1 to 10, Julie, with 10 being, heck yes, show me the house, I'll buy it today, I'm ready to go. And 1 obviously being, where would you rate your motivation to buy that house?
I'm probably like a 7, I think.
A 7, congratulations, that's fantastic. So let me know, what would it take to get you to a 10?
Well, I mean, ideally it can't be more than like 15 miles away from my work, and I really need to find out from my lender what that payment's going to end up at and my right price.
Or it turns out that I have a beer can collection that I inherited from my Aunt Matilda.
I have to actually save my down payment up.
Exactly. You're going to discover things. So if you don't ask these types of questions, and I know some of you guys don't want to ask questions like that. This is out of context. I just pulled one of the rando questions from a buyer pre-qual script. But if you have that question answered, you're going to then get out of them what the other lingering things are. Remember, this is happening on the first contact. Not after you already wasted all your nights and your weekends and blown apart your family because of the fact that you're so busy trying to show houses constantly. You want to know what what their motivation is.
What's it going to take to be a 10?
Right.
And if they are a 10, because this is the other this is the flip side to that coin.
Well, let me finish the script.
Go ahead.
All right, so they're going to say 10, absolutely. I'd absolutely buy the house.
Yep.
Okay, then you go to a couple different directions, but we teach you to say, well, fantastic. So have you seen any houses that met all your criteria since you've been looking? Have you seen anything you've discovered, maybe open houses or whatever that you've seen? And here's what you will cry the first time this happens. I'd love to be on your shoulder and hear you have this conversation, because here's what they're going to say. Matter of fact, Tim, I went through an open house just yesterday, and you know what? This is a rock star house. I really liked everything about it. And then you're going to say, well, did you make an offer on that property? Well, no, I didn't. Well, if the property's still available, would you like to make an offer on the property? And they're going to say, yes, I would. And guess what you're going to do, dear listener? You're going to sell them the house that they went through yesterday during the open house. There are no more threshold rules because of the new buyer agent regulations, guidelines, okay? So you can then go and you can show them, again, the house that they saw during the open house, and you can write the contract. Why didn't they write the contract with the agent that was holding it open? Because the agent that was holding it open was sitting in the back room watching the
football.
Super Bowl.
Exactly. This stuff does happen all the time, you guys. And, the other, I have to say, just hot off the presses from a lot of these calls myself, another trend, price reductions, yes. But to your point about, I just saw a house, I didn't write on it. Do you want to write on it? I am absolutely.
Well, you never say write on it, right?
Well, no. Do you want to make an offer on it?
Right.
Is this the one you want to buy?
Or the script is, would you like to do the paperwork so you can secure the property? Those types of things.
Take it off the market for everyone else. Okay. So the other thing that's surprised me last week, I think, is the amount of accepted offers now that are contingent on home sale.
Yep.
That's a new thing. And that's also, I would say that's kind of symptomatic of the price reduction phenomenon. We've got houses sitting on the market a bit longer. Sellers are getting a bit less particular. And now they have escape clauses that say if they get somebody that's not contingent on home sale, then, you get to renegotiate or what have you, whatever's written in. But that's something that there's so many agents, probably 95% of agents out there are believing that there's just no way in hell that they can get a home sale contingency through. I'm here to tell you that is not necessarily true.
Me and the buyer side.
Yeah.
So now, again, we're not going to end up talking about anything other than real estate, but that's fine. So on today's show, you're tipping my brain to something that we need to warn these guys about.
Yeah.
There is something in Premier Coaching called the Ultimate Addendum.
Yes.
And you need, whether you're on the buyer side or the seller side, you need to be using the Ultimate Addendum, but especially if you're on the listing side. Because here's what's going to happen. Listen to what your coach or your future coach and your eXp Realty partner is now telling you. Listen. So you're going to have a great listing you're going to put for sale. Congratulations, go you. And you're going to receive 2 or 3 offers. You priced it right, conditions right, everything's great. Perfect. Go you. Double win. And by the way, you got this listing from Prospecting Expired Listing. So you are so kick-ass right now. It's phenomenal. You then accept an offer. The offer is a little bit, the offer is perfect. It's list price. It's no Mickey Mouse, no crazy asks as far as just all the things. This is definitely the offer that makes the most sense for the seller. You do a net sheet. They see the numbers. They love it. Okay. The deal is not contingent on a home sale. There's no home sale in there. It's just beautiful. It's a great deal. They don't want to close in 30 or 60 days. They want to close in 90 days, but who cares? Gives your seller more time to find something. They can easily go, this is your seller and they can easily go from their existing house to their next house, new construction, whatever it's going to be. Perfect deal. Oh my gosh, dream scenario. You again are a rock star. Now, what happens is you get closer to, by the way, there's a lender's letter. You ask for the lender's letter. You've done what your, state association and your board of realtors and even your broker, your office manager told you. You asked for a lender's letter. You get the lender's letter. Lender's letter looks fine.
Textbook.
Textbook, it's good. So the deal's financed. The deal's subject on some subject. The financing is contingent on a few subject twos, verification of this, verification
Appraisal.
of that. You say whatever. Okay, I'm fine with that. That looks good to me. But what you don't realize, and this is the gotcha, I'll go back to my story mode. So you now are in contract with this buyer. Your seller even goes in contract on a new construction house. Everybody's excited. They're boxing their stuff up. You've stopped the showings, which wasn't a good idea, but you're now pushing through. And then all of a sudden you get a call from the lender or the title company. It's a week before closing. It's the day of closing. I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to close. The buyer's home didn't sell. And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? This wasn't contingent on buyer home sell. No, the purchase wasn't, but the financing was.
That's where their down payment was coming from.
That's right. So what happened is they got a lender to essentially give you a lender's letter. But what you didn't realize, that lender's approval was subject to the sale of their home. You guys get it? So you didn't do enough drill down on the lender's letter to determine that the lender and that buyer's agent were pulling a fast one on you. You accepted that buyer's in contract, and they had a home sale, but it was not. The financing was subject to the home sale.
It was contingent on financing, and embedded in that fact was that their down payment was coming from a home that hadn't sold yet.
Right, but because you were following the contracts all look like they're great, lender's letter was looking great, you didn't take the time, because no one until this very moment has told you that most lender's letters are a complete dumpster fire. You didn't take the time to drill down and find out, subject to what the hell the subject twos were on the lender's letter. So what we teach you to do, and some of you guys, I know I'm fire hosing you, I'm going above your head, catch up. Learn, because you're going to have to learn the hard way if you're not paying attention right now. I'm not going to slow down, because the reality of it is you need to know this. Otherwise, you're going to be hurting your buyers and your sellers, and you're going to be hurting yourself. There is an ultimate addendum in our Premier Coaching, which you should be, as a listing agent. Let's say, for example, you're now the listing agent again. You get that same offer. All the things look good. You then say, we accept your terms and conditions. Subject to, or rather contingent on, or whatever your counteroffer is going to say, back to that great buyer, you have to meet the criteria of the ultimate addendum. And what the ultimate addendum is that buyer going back to that that buyer agent going back to that buyer's lender and making that buyer's lender remove all the bullshit subject tos. Because you want a lender's letter that is only conditional on the appraisal of the home, not all the other things that the lenders sneak in. Because what the lenders are going to sneak in is not only secret contingencies of home sales, but all kinds of other things. They haven't verified the person's employment. If you're in Washington, D.C. right now, and
This is a thing for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you're working for the government, you might not have a job in 8 months. And if you accept an offer from somebody that's in DC, and you could be very well, the lender might decide not to give a loan to that particular classification of person because they're not sure that person's going to have a job in 9 months, or they might get fired. So the lenders are putting overlays, all this stuff. And if you guys are just blanketly accepting these BS lenders letters, you are going to screw yourself. So you need to be using our ultimate addendum. Use it on if you're a listing agent to protect the integrity of your contracts. Trust no lender letter until you've used the ultimate addendum. It's the absolute positive, solid, essentially system to make sure the lender's letters you're getting are actually what you think they are. And if you're on the buyer's side, you want to be giving that ultimate addendum to the buyer's lender to make sure the lender is actually doing their job. Because unfortunately, Larry, the lazy lender, his coach is teaching him not to do shit on the loan until the buyer actually has something in contract. That's how loan officers work for the most part.
Even after inspections.
Right. Not all of them work this way, but most of them will work this way. I'm going to say that again. Most lenders won't actually spend any time beyond just doing a cursory, easy pre-qualification, which someone could have done with AI online anymore. They don't even need to talk to a lender's letter. And you guys are accepting lender's letters from Rocket Mortgage and all these other things. Those are nothing. Why would you put any credit on those? Or, maybe Rockets is good, but you guys get the point. You have to have the ultimate addendum in the hands of the buyer, in the hands of the buyer's lender, and the buyer's lender actually has to check all 3 credit bureaus, verify the employment, verify the down payment,
Ratios.
verify there's no secret contingencies, do all these things. And so when you get the lender's letter, the only thing it can be subject to is the appraisal.
What you're talking about is forcing the process to happen faster on the lender side. You're getting them through underwriting. Many of you listening right now are very familiar with what Tim described. You get to the 11th hour, you thought everything was fine, everything was great, you're starting to get ready to close, you're sending them instructions as a title company, and you get that dreaded call. Oh, they've been in underwriting for a week, and we know that, their ratios aren't so good and their down payment hasn't been verified, they don't actually have it anymore, whatever it is. Don't you want to find out about all of that crap? Hopefully you don't find out about any of it and you close. But if you're going to find out, you want to hear about it earlier in the transaction so that you can do something about it or take a different, better offer.
Take a different, better offer. And so anything, when you guys have buyers right now, ask, and you're supposed to be, if you're not, it's because you're not a Premier Coaching client, you're supposed to be asking for those lender's letters at the start of your relationship before you waste time showing them houses. And then you want to look to see what the lender's letter is, and you'll see most of them are boilerplate, complete dumpster fire lender's letters, where the lender will say, congratulations, Bob and Betty have been blah, 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 blah. And then the second paragraph is full of all this lender jargon, subject to's, conditional on, all this. In other words, the lender is saying, I had this little 5-minute conversation while I was on the golf course with Bob and Betty. Yep. And based on what I think they said, I wasn't really listening that closely because I was, half schnockered because I'd been drinking beer all day. But I think they said this, and I found a lender's letter on my phone, and I dropped in their names, and I texted it to them. That's really what's going on.
It's a boilerplate template.
It's a boilerplate template. And then they stack it full of all these get out of jail free cards in the second paragraph, which invalidates the validity of that prospective
or
lender.
It just has an asterisk at the bottom that says maybe subject to all of our rules.
Yep. Nope. You don't accept that crap. Nope.
The problem is the lender letters are not like, when you fill out a listing contract or a buyer contract, it's multiple pages long. You're filling in the blank. It's already been vetted by attorneys, and certain things are required. You literally cannot finish that DocuSign until you filled in those fields. Lender letters are not like that.
Nope. And so pre-qualification and pre-approval, and lenders get pissed off when we say this, it's just a bunch of garbage. Ignore all the silly terms. What you want is a letter that says all complete approvals, all this is and the other things. And if there's any subject to is just a way of saying, oops.
It's like contingent on.
It's exactly. If there's anything in there other than subject to the appraisal of the subject property. In other words, the lender has done all the work, done all the verifications. The buyer is good to go. contingent on obviously whatever house they want to buy on an appraising.
Identifying the property and an appraisal.
That's it. That's the only acceptable subject to that you will accept in any of your lender's letters. Listen to what I'm saying. And if you don't listen to what I'm saying, you're going to find out the hard way. We've already done all the work for you. We've got the ultimate addendum. It's part of Premier Coaching. The link is down below in the show description. Join Premier Coaching or just go to premiercoaching.com. I so wanted to talk about Doge.
I have a few little bullet points if you have time, but if not, we'll save it up.
Honestly, Julie, when I started thinking about some of my, I'm sort of decompressing.
You are.
I had an intense week.
You're debriefing. Me too. Yeah.
Well, it was intense because there's a lot of people that are.
There's a lot going on.
Well, there is a lot going on. And I really want these guys to understand that there's market forces that are creating in many markets, in a lot of markets, a lot of consternation, a lot of headwinds, basically.
Yep.
And the only thing you can do is you can do one of two things in a headwind is you can just basically keep your head down, wait for the winds to clear. You're going to lose a year. Or you could basically stand up and you got to use 10x, 20x the amount of force to walk forward against the wind. And then eventually the wind, so again, I want you to imagine, ooh, this is good. I want you to imagine right now you and all your competitors, and the word is competitors. They are your competitors. Those other agents, they are competing with you. Don't be confused about that. So the wind starts blowing. You guys are all standing in a field. The wind starts blowing. There's 10 of you, okay? 9 of them say, screw this. Like those winds in California. What are those
Santa
called?
Anas.
Santa winds. You know those things are like 100, the ones that basically 100 miles per hour.
Yeah,
that led
crazy.
to some of these fires. 100 miles per hour.
Yep.
You can't stand up at 100 miles per hour.
No.
Okay. So that type of wind. So what everyone else does is they just hunker down. And they just wait for the winds to die down. So it's easier for them to pop back up and stop on their journey. Not you. You're the crazy SOB. You're going to stand up and now they're all back there. They're all hunkered down. You're going to stand up. You're going to lean into it. And you're going to use every single energy, every single ounce of energy you have in your body and your soul. And you're going to push forward. And you're going to have to push against that wind. Sometimes you have to, duck down a little bit because it's too strong. But they're just back there. You've now walked 10 paces, now 20 paces, now 30 paces. You're now, believe it or not, you've walked a half mile. All your competitors, there's 9 other agents, they're still back there hunkered down, waiting for it to get easy again. But nope, you're up there. You're the crazy SOB. You're pushing past all the headwinds. Now you look over your shoulder, you can't even see those competitors anymore. They're all the way back there. And sure enough, what starts to happen is the winds start to die down, and now it's easy. But what you've done is you've gapped them. You now have a mile or 2 miles. And even if they start running, they're never going to catch up with you. That's how you have an advantage because of markets like this. That's how smart people think when there's headwinds. You don't just hunker down and wait for the winds to clear. You got to drill down. You got to be that crazy son of a bitch. You got to be the one that's going to get up when everyone says stay down. You got to be the one that does what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And then you're going to gap your competition and they never catch up. And then it compounds because now you're not just a mile ahead of them, but then you're 2 miles ahead of them. Then you're 3 miles ahead of them. And then you keep on building, you keep on building. That is what it takes to build momentum despite what the market might be trying to, force you to think. And you've got to cut out anyone and everyone in your life that's telling you to say, damn, you got to hunker down, son. You got to wait for the clouds to clear. You got to wait for the winds to die down. Nope. You got to think, yes, market forces right now are definitely not wind at my back. That means that all my competitors are going to wimp out, they're going to hunker down, and they're going to wait for things to get easier. This is my opportunity to seize the market because I know my competition is checked out.
Very well said. So if there's a theme that has come from this podcast, and we did warn you, I think it's control, getting you back into control. It's up to you. If it's meant to be, it's up to me, meaning you. That's your mantra. I'm a doer. I do things now. I get things done. It is up to you. We did a podcast earlier in this week where we were talking about accepting the fact that there are market changes. There are shifts in the wind. That's going to happen, and you cannot control that. You can't control the inventory in your market. I mean, you can by taking more listings in your own way, but overall, you can't make the MLS magically rain more inventory for you. For some of you, you live in an area where that's not the issue. Okay, you cannot control what the interest rate is. Personally, you have zero control over that.
You can't control the politics. You can't control whether there's drones flying over your house. You can't control what Doge decided to cut that particular day. You can't control what any of the things are. The only thing ultimately you can control is
doing the proactive work of real estate.
Doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level.
At the highest level means doing it consistently, doing it every day, and going back to the beginning of this podcast, talking to the people who are most likely to actually need you.
You guys get that? I know, listen, some of you guys run into us sometimes when we're out and about, and you tap me on the shoulder, and you'll say, you try to make me laugh, which I'm very easy to make, that's easy, right?
Yes.
You'll say, I'm doing what I don't want to do when I don't want to do it at the highest level. That happened to us the other day.
At the gym.
Because they listen to our podcast. But here's all I'm trying to impress upon you. That is the ultimate recipe for long-term success in your business and personal life. And there's no arrival. There's no point where you can say, oh, I've done what I didn't want to do when I didn't want to do it at the highest level for long enough.
I don't have to do it anymore.
Screw y'all, I'm checked out.
Yeah.
Now you can, I will say this. If you've, essentially done what you didn't want to do when you didn't want to do it at the highest level, and you were able to accumulate enough wealth that you can actually start to, change the equation so you can do more of what you want to do when you want to do it at wherever the hell level you want to do it at.
True.
You can start doing more of that. But ultimately, if you stop doing the real work of life at the highest level, you're going to lose what you have. So there's no such thing as having, perpetual great health or perpetual great wealth or perpetual great relationships or anything. Your relationship with God, all of those things have to be constantly reinforced. Again, you might want to give yourself a little reprieve from work occasionally, but at the end of the day, the nature of our existence on this planet as spiritual beings and physical incarnations in bodies, right, is to always have to improve, is to always have to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. I mean, Julie and I haven't been to the gym today, and I don't want to go, and I'm probably going to try to figure out 15 crafty ways not to have to go.
We're going to do it.
But we're going to do it. And it's going to suck. But I'm going to be so glad when it's over with.
Me too.
And how much of what you guys are doing right now is the antithesis of what you intuitively know is that, if you want ever increasing levels of success in your business and personal life, you have to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. How many of you are doing the exact opposite? I'm not going to do something unless I feel like it.
Yep.
I don't feel motivated.
I don't feel like it.
It doesn't, not my passion. I'm definitely not calling expireds. I'm definitely not doing that. It's not my whatever, right? You're waiting for some kind of emotion to elicit some kind of energy inside of you that somehow motivates you to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. Maybe, hopefully, Julie and I are motivating you today, and that will help you along your way. But this is the truth. If you're waiting to feel a certain way before you finally do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level, you will never do shit in your life because you'll never feel that level of motivation for long enough that you'll ever get good at whatever that particular activity is. Remember, do what you don't want to do. And that's pretty much everything we've asked you to do on today's podcast,
Yep.
right?
That's why it's called work.
When you don't want to do it, which is, I'm going to guess pretty much all the time.
Yep.
At the highest level. And at the highest level means with the intent of becoming the best at whatever that activity is. That's the main thing. And if you're having any headwinds, and if you're like, look for all the practical answers, the obvious answers to why you're essentially experiencing headwinds right now. And I got news for you. It's not because you need to add something to your dream board. It's not because you need more motivation. It's because you're just not taking enough actions in the direction that you want to go. You're hunkered down. You're waiting for your mindset to improve before you're waiting for things to just start dropping in your lap before you actually start doing what you don't want to do, or you'll never even do those things. You guys get it? This is your opportunity if you make it your opportunity. And when it's hard for you, chances are it's hard for everyone else too, which means that's the opportunity bell ringing. That's hopefully what you're feeling right now. So what are you supposed to do with all this? Make a list of all the things that you absolutely positively will never do for the sake of lead generation in real estate. Make a list. Go ahead, do it now. Do it in your head. Seriously, do it. If you don't know what that list is, because I've just motivated you to call expireds, now you're saying, I'm absolutely going to call expireds. I want you to make a list. I'm going to make it a little harder for you, okay? I want you to make a list of all the things that you've never done for a proactive, in the guise of lead generation, that you've never done, okay? Because chances are those are the same things that you've never done because you've talked yourself out of doing them because they required skill. You might have some rejection. It would have required you doing what you didn't want to do and you didn't want to do at the highest level. Okay, now you've got that list. You'll notice it's pretty much all the things that Julie and I were advocating today. And then I want you to look at that list and I want you to think to yourself, like, what are you doing? Like, you have 10 expireds that popped up today, or 30 or 40 or 100. You went back 6 months and it turns out there's 5,000. Right? That's going to require skill. It's going to require you picking up the phone. It's going to require you making yourself uncomfortable. It's going to require you know how to pre-qualify. It's going to require you having your pre-listing pack done, having a formalized listing presentation, all the things. How many of you right now just listened to Julie and I for over an hour and you're just going to go back to a Facebook group and ask for ideas and where you can spend a little bit of the profit from your last closing to buy more leads? Right? Do you guys get it? It's an exercise in futility. And Julie and I are the only voices in real estate right now that I'm aware of that are telling you what we're telling you. Everyone else has been subsidized by the lead sellers, by the CRMs, by the tech platforms. Every single other coach, professional entity, whatever it is, for the most part, there's some good ones out there. They're basically, their bread is being buttered by the people that are trying to sell you guys this asininity. And you need to decide whether or not you're going to continue to listen to them. And ask yourself, how is it working out for me essentially trying to become the mayor of my town when thousands of other agents are trying to run for the same, fictitious political office? Why don't I do what I don't want to do when I don't want to do it at the highest level? And if you continue, you guys think that a world-class brain surgeon, a world-class vet, do you think that somebody is the best? You think a Formula One driver? Do you think an amazing athlete? Do you think all those people are at the levels that they are because they have passion for what they're doing? No, they don't. They don't have passion for what they're doing. They have passion for the results that come from what they're doing. So if you're looking for passion to be your igniter, to finally do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level, which is what you guys are being told you should be trying to, create inside yourselves, you will never make any money because you're never going to find that passion consistently enough, because passion is the emotion that comes and goes. Have passion for the results that you get from doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And that means you're going to have to suck it up buttercup. You're going to have to oftentimes do what you don't want to do. And that's okay. Be passionate for the fact that you get to spoil your family. Be passionate for the fact that you get to, donate money. Be passionate for the fact that you actually have a road to one day being able to retire and just live off the dividends or your, cash flow from your rental property or your EXP revenue share or whatever it is. Be passionate for what comes as a result of long periods, years, decades of doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. That's the truth. What I just told you guys is the truth. It's not my truth or Julie's truth. It is the truth. And you will not find anybody that's achieved anything in life at a high level that does not have their own version of what I just said.
Starts with your next appointment, though.
Yep.
So let's throw them out a challenge.
Okay.
This is obviously the Friday show. Okay. So we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then you have a new podcast with us on Monday. So between now and our next podcast that you'll be listening to, how many new appointments, pre-qualified appointments, will you set? I would challenge them. Everybody listening should be able to do at least one per day. And you know what always happens when I torture coaching clients with this challenge? They go immediately to their lead follow-up. Well, I could just call this person and close them. They know. Okay, I had a call with somebody yesterday and she said, well, I suppose I should just door knock that FSBO. I keep driving past in my neighborhood.
Well, loser thoughts, right? So, yeah. Again, hitting you guys between the eyes because I'm really doing my best to try to motivate you away from your consternation. So if you're thinking as, well, nobody answers the phone, or all the phone numbers I get from Red X, or all the things. If your immediate thought is I'm too busy, if you're piling on all the reasons why proactive lead generation won't work for you, okay, that's my answer. Okay, I'm not going to try to talk you out of your decision not to do the real work of real estate. I'm not going to try any more than I already have. If I were your coach, obviously I would, and you're paying me, and I would obviously have an obligation. But in this format, if you decide that you just want to stick with what you're doing, waiting around for the clouds to clear and the winds to, finally be at your backs again, you're going to lose not just probably this year, but the momentum that you would have had going into next year and the year after that. You're going to possibly fail out of real estate, even if you're at the top of the hill now, even if you're a top producing agent in your king agent in your marketplace. You have no guarantee that you're going to be in that same position tomorrow, let alone next year, especially now because things are changing so fast. More than ever, listen to the message that we're passing along to you, because as Julie said, if it's meant to be, it is up to me or, you, right? If it's meant to be, it's up to you. That's the truth. Make something of this market because it's hard. Make something of this market because other people are hunkered down. Make something of this market because other people are confused. Make something of this market because there's price reductions and the other agents haven't priced their listings correctly, probably won't get them repriced correctly, and that'll lead to more expireds. You guys get it? There's opportunity all around you. There are going to be probably 4.5 million sales this year. That's 9 million commission checks because there's two sides to each transaction, and that does not include new construction. Add all that together.
That's another million.
Yeah, a million. So you're looking at, 10 million, 9 million transactions. Average sale price in the United States is $400,000. Let's say the average commission is $10,000. Can you guys do the math in your head? 9 million times $10,000. How much money do you need to make this year to have your best year ever, right? You see how much opportunity there is all around you? You see how many buyers and seller leads there are all around you? Stop waiting. Go after it. Be proactive. That is hopefully the motivational, we try to educate, we try to motivate you. And as Julie said, now it's your time to get into action. And what was Julie's homework? What was her challenge to you?
Get at least one new pre-qualified buyer or seller appointment every day between now and Monday's podcast.
That's 2 days. Oh, that's 3 days.
3 days, they get Friday.
3 days with today. All right. One, you said pre-qualified buyer or seller?
Yep, every day.
I'm going to make it better.
That's 3 new deals by Monday.
I'd like to make,
Sure.
Okay, you can do that. That's the first level. But level 2 is develop 3 new seller leads, which, by the way, they might be the ones that you think are buyers, but they actually have houses to sell between now and Monday. 3.
Refer to previous scripting from this podcast. Which home in the neighborhood do you plan on selling?
That's right. Okay. Hopefully this helped all of you guys. And Julie did have pages of notes of weird things she wanted to talk about.
It's okay.
But
we'll save them up.
We'll save them up. Exactly. Hopefully this helped you guys. Maybe Julie and I were doing a little unloading from our rather stressful week, trying to unstress other people, but that is the Friday show.
That's right.
You guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show on Monday. Remember, there's thousands of past podcasts if you want to get back to listening to our more traditional real estate training and coaching. They're waiting for you over on your favorite podcast listening widget. Have a fantastic day.